When you give a questionable character near unlimited amounts of power, you have the perfect recipe for unspeakable acts of cruelty. The Roman Empire had plenty of such people. Nero or Caligula generally come to mind to most of us, but Caracalla should be right up there in your list of most cruel emperors. He was brutal, relentless, and firmly believed he was entitled to crush anyone or anything to get what he wanted. He massacred the empire's second largest city just for mocking him, murdered his brother so he could rule the empire alone, and threw the empire on a deficit and debasement spiral, setting up the stage for an economic crisis that would ruin Roman money a few decades after his reign. A remarkably high number of his coins have reached our days, and today we're going on a quick numismatic tour of this very cruel man, Caracalla. Lucius Septimius Bassianus was the son of Emperor Septimius Severus. Severus himself was a man of the military, taking control of the empire after the civil war that broke out when Commodus was assassinated on the 1st of January 193 AD. Despite a very bloody conflict this civil war was, he managed to quickly calm down the situation and establish his uncontested rule by showering the military with money and prestigious positions. By this time, Roman society had nearly a century of very stable rule under the Nerva Antonines, and despite most of this dynasty not being related by blood to one another, there was this idea, this established idea of a continuous, stable dynasty with an imperial family firmly established at the top of Roman society. Septimius Severus picked up on this and made sure that his own family was quickly established as the new imperial family, with his wife, Julia Domina, and his sons, Caracalla, our protagonist of today, and his brother, Geta. Now, this was just a veneer of republicanism on his part, really. Septimius didn't care one bit about the institutions, and this was clearly shown as he forced the Senate to enact a decree that made him posthumously adopted by none other than Marcus Aurelius. And in case you didn't quite understand what I just said, or what I said just sounded absurd, I actually mean it. At around 195, Septimius Severus decreed that Marcus Aurelius, an emperor that was dead for 15 years, had posthumously adopted him. He then changed the name of Caracalla to that of Marcus Aurelius, so he changed it to Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, effectively making himself and his son a part of the previous Nerva Antonine dynasty, although no historian gives credit to this claim. Even people back then considered this mostly as a show of force, a mockery of the Senate and Roman institutions, a clear show of I'm in charge and I can do whatever I want. Now let's slow down for a moment. I'm spitting out a lot of names here, and this might get a bit confusing for some. So this video is about Caracalla, the elder son of Septimius Severus. But this was not his real name. Caracalla was a nickname originated from a cloak, the caracallus, which he liked to wear. His given name at birth, as I mentioned previously, was Lucius Septimius Bassianus, and it was changed to Marcus Aurelius Antoninus on the aforementioned posthumous adoption of his father by Marcus Aurelius. This might generate quite a bit of confusion for our coin collectors. Coins of Caracalla often depict, as we will see shortly, the name Marcus Aurelius Antoninus or Antoninus Pius, no sign of Bassianus, and of course no Caracalla. Fortunately, the way Caracalla was depicted on his coins is completely different to how Marcus Aurelius or Antoninus Pius were shown, so it's easy to tell one from the other, but for someone completely new to Roman coins, you might be confused at first. This actually reminds me of a funny thing I saw when visiting a museum in Spain. Here's a picture I took from a display of coins they had. There is a spot marked as Antoninus Pius, but if we zoom in, whoops, that is a coin of Caracalla. This shows how important dedicated numismatists are to the study of coins, as the archaeologists who prepared this display did not know the difference between two very important emperors, that's a very basic mistake. This might be a good opportunity to show our first coin of the day. This is a denarius of Caracalla from the year 200. He was just 12 years old by that time, so the position of emperor was basically a symbolic one, as his father put him there simply as a designated successor to the empire. On the obverse we can see this very well sculpted bust of the young Caracalla, very much looking like the child he was. Yes, a child, but a child emperor nonetheless. As we can see, he wears the laurel wreath, so a full sign he was co-emperor. He also wears some draperies over his shoulder. And on the legends, his new name, Antoninus Augustus. The reverse is quite interesting as well. Here we have Sol Invictus, the sun god, so an Eastern deity. The depiction of different deities to the traditional Greco-Roman pantheon wasn't anything new by their time, but being of North African origins, the Severans definitely decided to depict some of the gods and myths typical of their home province on their coinage. The legend read Pontifex Tribunicia Potestas Tertium, meaning Caracalla, as I said, a 12-year-old boy, was already an official priest of the Roman religion, despite obviously not doing any work as such, and had tribunician powers, a very serious set of administrative powers, for the 3rd year already. As I said, the Severans didn't care much about Roman institutions. We then go a bit further in time and look at this other coin. Caracalla is growing up. This piece is attributed to the year 207. So he was around 19 at that time, and now he's depicted as this young adult man. By that time, Caracalla was already actively participating in his father's military campaigns, and just like him, he felt at home around the troops. In fact, the support of the army will be his sole support in his future reign. By this time, however, tensions were starting to escalate between him and his brother Geta, with many contemporary sources stating Caracalla was starting to show his brutal, authoritarian side. As for the coin, on the obverse we have his laureate bust, still without the thick, short beard he will be famous for. He's also depicted with a rather contempt, light-hearted expression, something that will change significantly in his later coins. The legends are also rather simple. Antoninus Pius Augustus. As for the reverse, in line with his personal preferences for military matters, we have Mars, the Roman god of war, carrying a military standard, a spear, and wearing nothing but some very revealing draperies in his war helmet. The legends make reference to his position as a priest and his official titles: Pontifex Tribunicia Potestas for the 10th year and Consul for the 2nd year. Then, on 211, while campaigning on Britain, Septimius Severus, his father, died, leaving the empire for his 2 sons. Before dying, records say he tried one last time to make peace between his sons, advising them to be harmonious with each other, enrich the soldiers, and scorn all others. Caracalla took the enrich the soldiers and scorned all other part very seriously. The be harmonious with your brother part, however, well, not so much, as he very quickly got rid of poor little Geta. The strategy used by Caracalla was rather simple: bribe his way into unrestricted support of the army. He gave his troops massive bonuses and increased their pay. Force was to be his only and strongest argument. Here we have a denarius of his sole reign. Now we have an older Caracalla. In this example from 213, so here we have a 23-year-old man with his thick beard and very angry expression. This imagery was adopted after the murder of his brother, when he openly assumed his authoritarian position, and it was a clear statement no civil war, such as the one his father had to fight, was going to happen, as he was depicted himself as a formidable soldier. Looking at the obverse, apart from this new angry-looking bust, we can see he claims victory over the Britons during his father's last campaign, and we can read, Antoninus Pius Augustus Britannicus. Britannicus meaning the conqueror of Britain. Heading to the reverse, we have Serapis, a Romano-Egyptian syncretic god, supposed to be the Egyptian representation of the Roman king of the gods, Jupiter. He can be seen holding a scepter and raising his hand in the imperial salutatio, the gesture emperors would make when greeting their troops to the crowd. On the legends, we have his new imperial titles. Some of them are now different as he inherited them from his father. So, for example, now we have Pontifex Maximus instead of just Pontifex. We then have Tribunicia Potestas 16, Consul for the 4th year, and Pater Patriae, Father of his nation, another title previously reserved only for Septimius. Numismatically, Caracalla is better known, however, for the introduction of a new coin in the year 215. Due to his complete reliance on the army to maintain his position, Caracalla had to foot an astonishing bill to keep so many troops and to pay so many bonuses. This meant that he had to scrape money from wherever he could find. He reduced slightly the fineness of the denarius. He extended Roman citizenship to nearly all free men of the empire to increase the taxable amount of people. And most significantly, he created this, the Antoninianus, named after him, Antoninus, a coin worth 2 denarii, but only containing the silver weight of around 1.6 denarii. This quick creation of money from thin air, effectively, would generate inflation, but it's not like he cared, really. So for our coin here, the first Antoninianus, despite being a quote-unquote fraud to raise money to the coffers, talking as a numismatic, I love this. This is a very big, impressive coin, and as you can see, we have this imposing bust of Caracalla, full of detail, now with a radiate crown over his head instead of the laurel crown to distinguish this coin from a normal denarius. On the legends, we can read Antoninus Pius Augustus Germanicus, as he conducted a successful campaign on the Germanic frontier. Heading to the reverse, we have Jupiter, the king of the gods, holding his thunderbolt and his scepter. The legends read Pontifex Maximus Tribunicia Potestas for the 18th year, Consul for the 4th time, Pater Patriae. The Antoninianus is generally known as this debased, lackluster little coppery-looking coin compared to the earlier denarii, but these very first issues are really impressive, with this particular coin being one of my favorite pieces. Apart from an authoritarian maniac, Caracalla also had the idea of emulating the feats of Alexander the Great. The man was completely obsessed with Alexander, with multiple depictions of him where the style can clearly be connected to Alexander. Look at these 2 breathtaking gold medallions, both dated to the reign of Caracalla. On the left, we can see a bust of Alexander in a typical pose of deified figures looking upwards to heavens, while Caracalla is on a more traditional pose, facing left, but it is very easy to see the visual connections between both men. And he saw as the best way to follow on the footsteps of his hero, to embark on a grand campaign towards the east, aiming to conquer the Parthian Empire. It seems like the mobilization of troops to the region was very significant because for the last years of his reign, multiple cities in the east started issuing silver tetradrachma to pay for this massive campaign. If you ever dream of having your own tetradrachma, these big and imposing coins, and having a Roman one instead of a Greek one isn't a problem, you have a great variety to choose from as far as Caracalla coins go, with very different styles depending on the mint where it was made. What I have here for you today is one of the most common types, minted at the city of Antioch, the main base of operations for Caracalla in the east and the 3rd largest city in the empire. This particular piece is attributed to the year 213. On the obverse, we have the laureate bust of Caracalla in a clearly more eastern style if we compare it to the imperial denarii, but still clearly recognizable as the man. Since we're talking about the eastern half of the empire, the half where Greek was most widely spoken, the legends will of course be in Greek, but they're basically a translation to what you would typically find on a denarius. So in this case we can read Autocrator Caesaros Antoninos Sebastos, a direct translation from Imperator Caesar Antoninus Augustus. Heading to the reverse, we have the eagle, a very common motif on Roman coinage struck in the East. It was a very simple to understand and straightforward symbol of power and authority, as the eagle was the symbolic animal of the Greek Zeus. It is holding a laurel wreath on its beak and standing over the leg of some animal, a clear show of force by Rome's side, a sign of subjugation and violence to the East. The legends reinforce the imperial titles of Caracalla for that year. It would translate to tribunician powers for the 16th time and consul for the 4th time. Sadly for Caracalla, and happily for everyone else however, his plans to conquer the East were cut short in 217, when a disgruntled soldier, under orders of an usurper, Macrinus, stabbed the emperor to death, putting an end to this cold, cruel man's reign. Macrinus would quickly set up a ceasefire with the Parthians. Obviously, you will not find any coins showing a deified Caracalla, as no one at the Senate really liked the man at that stage. His memory wasn't damned, however, like Caligula, for example, due to his immense popularity among the majority of the army. Caracalla goes down in Roman history as a bad, evil emperor, but he also lays bare a harsh reality of the ancient world, and some would say of the modern world as well, that the sword is much mightier than the pen. Force wins in the end. Now I want to hear from you collectors. Have you got a coin of Caracalla? Let us know in the comment section down below. And please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you enjoyed this video, as it really helps the channel. So happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.